Howdy all. It's been a bit of a hot minute since I made a video, mainly owing to the fact that I went to Sydney for a little bit, saw Idols. It was so good. Sydney though.
What a shithole.
But yeah, I have my wheelchair to get around, and that's basically what I'm here to talk about today is wheelchairs. And there's a lot to talk about. So this is my first wheelchair. I got it a couple of years ago. And it came after a period of where I was using forearm crutches to get around, but my endurance had reached a point where, you know, it was really tricky to get around. I could probably manage like 100 meters for a walk with both crutches before I really needed to have a good rest. And it was like risky walking as well. I was prone to falls and things like that. While I was using the crutches and I'd sort of reached that point where things were quite difficult for me, I was seeing specialists to get some advice and get scans and whatnot to try and get some sort of prognosis or, you know, information about, you know, what my condition would end up like and those sorts of things. And I remember, meeting a specialist to, you know, talk about options, and surgically there weren't any, and they weren't really sure how far my condition would progress either. So lots of unknowns there, but they did sort of say that, look, you'll probably need a wheelchair at some point. And I remember when I heard that, just in my head, I was like, there's no way. You know, I'm going to go to the gym more. I'm going to train harder. I'm going to do everything that I can so that, you know, I don't need a wheelchair. And I saw it as this sort of like line in the sand as something that I didn't want to, you know, cross over and end up using. And I've learned since then that that's something called internalized ableism.
Gross.
And I'm sure I've still got some of it kicking around now, but I had a lot more of it then. And that basically means that, you know, when imagining the prospect of using a wheelchair, to me, at that time, I saw it as like a lesser thing, like not a desirable thing, something to make my life easier, like a tool or anything like that. It was just like this scary, nah, not for me sort of thing. So yeah, I put up with the crutches for longer than I should have. You know, probably a year or two longer than I should have. And it was a difficult time, you know, like I couldn't go food shopping. I had to get food and groceries delivered. Going out was very difficult for me, just because I didn't have that endurance, and walking was dangerous. So yeah, at one point I was seeing an occupational therapist about some other things, and they sort of suggested, look, why don't you know, at least try a wheelchair out and see what you think. And by that point, I was probably a bit more accepting of it as an option, just because life had been quite difficult, and I'd come around to it a bit. And I think at that point I recall also feeling like a little bit of optimism about having, you know, another option instead of this sort of difficult way of getting around that I'd sort of made for myself. So I started doing my research. I knew that I didn't want like a big sort of like heavy wheelchair, something that was cumbersome to get around. I sort of anticipated that I would need to you know, put it in my car. So I wanted something light, as light as I could possibly get, because I would be using an insurer to fund the wheelchair. Because it's my first one, they're not going to buy me some like sexy titanium custom made one, because it needed to be something that was adjustable, so it could be you know, fine tuned for my body and how I sit and all that sort of stuff, to make sure that I wasn't hurting myself with it. So as well as researching different types of wheelchairs, I also did some research on techniques on how to use one, so that when it came time to go to a wheelchair supply company with my occupational therapist, I had, you know, some basic idea about how to use one. And we went in there and we had a look at the different frames and different types of wheelchairs. They had the one that ultimately I ended up purchasing, which is made by a company called Tylite. And they sort of found one that was roughly my size and said, look, hop in it, go for a roll, see what you think. So I got in this chair and just went for a little bit of a push around the shop front sort of area. And then I went out into the car park, which was concrete, you know, flat. And it was just like this moment of just like realization of like what have I been doing? Like, why did I view this as something that wasn't like a tool to help me, you know, like I hadn't, just rolling around in the car park, you know, I hadn't moved that fast in years, like probably by that point, like 10 years, you know, like I was walking, but I had a severe limp. I could barely support myself to stand at that point. And yeah, just immediately just rolling around felt so liberating. But as well as that, it was fun, you know, like I'd forgotten how fun it was to sort of move at speed under your own control without it like absolutely taxing your body immediately, like I was used to. And yeah, I was hooked on the idea from that moment about getting a wheelchair. So they measured me up, placed the order, and within a couple of months I had my first wheelchair, a Tylite Aero T. I picked this one because the frame type apparently is a little bit more rigid, and I was all about sort of like wanting it to be as efficient as possible to use. Like looking back, I might have gone with a different option, maybe a box frame, just because it probably would have fit in my car a little bit more nicely. But anyway, the chair arrived, immediately took the push handles off the back of it. I wanted it to be as light and lean as possible. And yeah, the very day that I got it, I took it down to one of our beaches here in Adelaide, where there was like a nice paved foreshore sort of area to roll around on. And yeah, I just went for a blast and just loved it, you know, like went further under my own power than I had in so long. And I'm a bit of a fan of sunsets, so it was good to have a tool that I can use to sort of easily go out and, you know, watch them again. We're sort of lucky here because the sunset's over the ocean, which is really nice. And the very next day, I've never been a fan of shopping, but the next day I went to this open air shopping mall that we've got here in Adelaide, and I was there for hours just blasting around, you know, going faster than people that were walking, which was a bit of a thrill actually, and something that I still enjoy to this day. And yeah, I just spent hours just looking around and getting used to it and exploring things and going where I wanted to and not being beholden to my body, you know, near as much as what I was used to. So today, yeah, I thought I'd show you, I guess, how I get the wheelchair around, putting it in and out of my car, the car that you've seen. And also, yeah, we'll go out for a roll, and I'll talk a bit more about my experience with the wheelchair, which I've had for 2 years now. So it's probably not very long in the scheme of things. I'm probably a bit of a rookie still, but yeah, I've learned a few things, and that's what I wanted to share today.
All right. So the way that this usually works is that pull up here behind the car, open her up, grab one of my forearm crutches out of the car so I can get myself around to the front, grab my little AS Colour stool, chuck that down there, hopefully you can see that. Yep, cool. And then, yeah, pull it apart. Now, as I said before, I did get back from Sydney, and it's a hilly place and I'm pretty smashed, like I've injured my arm a bit. So if I make some old man noises while I'm putting this away, I apologise. That's pretty much it. Oh no, you can't see my head. Then using my forearm crutch and one hand on the car, usually just gently make my way around, jump in the car, and then I just put the forearm crutch sort of in the passenger seat, and good to go. All right, in the car, found a park in the city, so now I'm gonna reverse the process with my wheelchair. There's a few people around. I've never really filmed in front of people before, so that feels a bit weird. But yeah, let's get to it. and didn't have much luck with parking today. Usually there's there's enough accessible parks around to find a spot where I've got enough space. But every now and then I have to park in a park like this, where there's a car behind me, and that's a little bit awkward because sometimes if someone parks pretty close to me, it's really bloody difficult to get my wheelchair back in the car again. So hopefully that's not going to happen today. You're probably looking at my crotch. I'm sorry about that. That's better. All right. Yeah, cool. So I'm just going for a bit of a roll around Adelaide today. Going to go check out a bookstore. But Adelaide, where I live, the city's pretty accessible, I reckon. There's a few cutouts like the one coming up here that are all, pretty tidy, I think. Not too much to complain about. Some of them are a bit dodgier than others, but yeah, generally speaking, they're pretty good. I did come across one guy recently who told me I was brave for using a manual wheelchair around the city. But I think it's pretty doable. Like I said before, I did just get back from Sydney, and that was significantly harder than here. Like the cutouts and stuff were like really bad, and a lot of the pathways, like if they're steep, that's one thing, but then if they have camber's when the road sort of tilts left to right as you're approaching it. So over here it's, going down to the left a bit, and if you're on a path like that, that means I have to push with my left arm more than my right arm, which, if you're already going up an incline, gets really tiring really quickly. So yeah, Sydney was pretty bad for that, at least in the city. One of the other things about Sydney, which was really surprising when I got there, is I went to get on the train, and the train doesn't even meet up where the platform is. There's like a gap, of 6 or 8 inches or so, which, if you're any good at a wheelchair, you can probably do a bit of a wheelie over it. But, there's people that needed to come out like with ramps and stuff to help you out, which is kind of very surprising for a massive city like Sydney. You think that would be like pretty top tier accessibility wise. So I use my wheelchair to go to gigs and pubs and stuff like that. And to also do my grocery shopping. I'm not a big fan of grocery shopping, but having the autonomy to be able to do it is really, really good, and I really enjoy that. So yeah, being able to do all that stuff makes it pretty life-changing for me. Without that and just using the sticks, it was like way too hard to do that stuff. So yeah, it's been pretty amazing. And I feel like I'm still a bit of a beginner. Like I've got the basics down pretty well, I reckon. And sorry if it's pretty noisy, there's a lot of buses around and stuff. But I've got the basics down. There's a few sort of more advanced things that I want to get better at doing, like wheelies down ramps and stuff like that. I'm not great at. Standing wheelies are good. When I first got the wheelchair, I did some lessons with occupational therapist, and also this local legend called Grant from Push Mobility. He taught me how to do wheelies or wheel stands, which is a pretty important skill to have as a wheelchair user. Being able to do wheel stands means you can like try and get your way up curbs and little steps and stuff like that might be too tricky to do otherwise. So this path's got a bit of camber, and I'm pretty much just pushing with one arm. Just even this very slight amount of camber is enough to mean that. I would like to learn to do a few tricks as well. I've seen some pretty like adept manual wheelchair users on YouTube, and yeah, they can do some pretty cool stuff, and I wouldn't mind learning. Yeah, like, I don't know, people do some cool spins while they're doing wheelies and stuff like that, and yeah, I think that'd be cool to learn. But also, I'm a 45-year-old man, and I probably don't really need to be doing that with my body, but that's all right. So something that's really useful actually is, I'm just going to get off here because this is pretty grotty. Something that's really useful is on Google Maps, on the app, you can look up a place and it'll have a little like accessibility badge letting you know if it's sort of considered accessible. I think the business owner has to apply to get that put on there perhaps. But basically, yeah, it'll have a little wheelchair badge, and I'll put some examples up on the screen. But that sort of gives you an idea if a place is accessible or not. And I'm just going to hold here for a sec while I finish my thought here. And yeah, that can be a really good indication about if a place is accessible. Sometimes it won't have the badge at all, and that probably just means that no one's applied for it yet, or something like that. But other times it'll have the wheelchair badge, but it'll have a line through it, and usually that means there's steps or there's no accessible bathroom there or something like that. So yeah, I found that pretty useful to always look up new places first and just have a quick squiz. If it doesn't have the badge and you're not too sure what the accessibility situation is, basically like Google Street View is pretty handy. You can have a look at the front of the menu and see if it's got steps and stuff like that. Obviously you probably won't find out if it's got an accessible bathroom or anything like that, but yeah, that's a good sort of shortcut way of checking it out before you go to all the effort of getting there and getting your wheelchair out and all that sort of stuff, only to go in and get disappointed that you can't access the place. I am in the wrong mall. Something that's proven pretty difficult to date is beaches. Beaches are really hard to sort of work out. There's a lot of logistics to try and work out, and I don't think that I could ever do it solo at this stage. I'm trying to work out a few tricks to be able to do it, but yeah, really tough. And I think beaches probably deserves its own episode because yeah, there's a lot to sort of talk about there. But I thought maybe at some point I'll have a look at some of the jetties and beaches here in Adelaide and just give them a bit of a suss from a accessibility point of view. Yeah, that one I reckon. Thank you. How cool is this bookstore? Look at this shit. This is gonna melt my brain. So I've got a bit of, excuse the noise, leg control so I can kind of hold stuff like that there. So I was saying before just about beaches and how difficult they are to navigate, and yeah, the camber and the paths and all that stuff that I talked about before. So that's probably like one thing that I have learned about having a wheelchair is that it's amazing in places like this, like very smooth surface, relatively flat, doesn't take much effort at all, and I could probably do this all day long and not stress about it. But as soon as you add that camber that I talked about before, or a big gradient, a hill to go up, it really starts to smash your body a bit. And you know, at the start of the video when I sort of talked about not feeling great about the concept of a wheelchair and having one and having to depend on it and all that sort of stuff, I had a lot of internalized ableism, which, you know, made it feel a bit yuck. I think I have a similar thing still, or, you know, I did when I started using the wheelchair, in that I wanted that independence and I wanted to push my way up hills, and no matter how much it hurt my body and all that sort of stuff, like just pride, I think silly pride, you know. And yeah, your arms and your shoulders are not made to get you around. So, you know, I've hurt myself like several times, like shoulders, elbows, I've had injuries, and when you're very dependent on using your arms to get around and you've got an injury, that's bad, you know, like it's really frustrating and it really affects the quality of life. So I think that's something that I absolutely would say about, you know, if you are considering getting a wheelchair, is that it's a tool and it can be absolutely life-changing, like I was saying before, and it helps me get out into the world and yeah, do stuff like this and a lot of stuff otherwise. But yeah, you have to respect it. If you push it too hard or push your body too hard, it's you can hurt yourself. And yeah, I'm not a young dude, so I'm probably prone to injuries more than, you know, a younger person might be. So yeah, I got to factor that in and, you know, plan ahead accordingly and ask for help, stuff like that. Hit up my friends for help. Yeah, friends are only too happy to give me a bit of a push on the shoulder, which is a massive help. So yeah. Oop, car's coming up behind me. Better give way. But yeah, like cruising around town like this, like you can see it's pretty flat. It's pretty fun. Like I'm pretty happy that I can do this. But yeah, you just got to temper your expectations. We've got a big festival coming up soon, which is all on grass, and I've got tickets for that. WOMAD, for anyone who knows it. And yeah, I'm gonna have to make sure that I give myself plenty of breaks and stuff like that, and just chill out from time to time. Ask for help if I need it, because yeah, otherwise, you know, it's a 4-day thing. If I go too hard, I'll definitely regret it. Yo! This is a wheelie. This is what I was talking about before, so that's something I can do. But yeah, I think that's it for the video. All I wanted to talk about in this one was just how getting the wheelchair has been a bit of a life changer for me and helped me get back into the community a lot. But also that I got to sort of temper my expectations a little bit and not injure myself by going too hard. But yeah, that's sort of what it is. It's a big learning curve, and there's still a lot more I could talk about with the wheelchair. So I think maybe I'll do another video and just talk about the different parts and pieces and things that I've changed for myself with my setup and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one.